You're watching Can TV and you've tuned into Turn the Pages. I'm your host, Jordan Rivers. Let me just say a special thank you to our guest today, Mrs. Simmons, and we're definitely going to get into our conversation that we will have. First, I do want to talk about our last show, which we went over the 6 definitions of poverty or variations of poverty. That's situational, generational, absolute, relative, urban, and rural poverty, and just how it affects education and definitely our children's and our teachers. So we're just going to go in. So Mrs. Simmons is here with us today. Thank you for being a guest.
Thank you for having me.
No problem. And she is an intermediate teacher for 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade math, correct?
Yes.
And at what school?
Wendell Holmes Elementary School. It's at 933 West Garfield Boulevard.
Okay. And is that the Inglewood neighborhood?
Yes.
Okay. So when we talk about Inglewood, would you say that that is under one of the definitions of poverty as far as the neighborhood is concerned?
Yes, there's definitely a high level of low-income families that are within that community.
Okay. I want to get into how just the area, the funding, how that affects you as a teacher. A lot of parents and just people in the community may not know what you experience from day to day. And so I really want you to tell the community and our viewers right now what you go through as a teacher.
Well, I've been with Chicago Public Schools since 2005, and it has been an eye-opening experience. Being a student of Chicago Public Schools myself, I knew going into it what to expect because I was actually one of the kids that I now teach. I grew up in a neighborhood that was low income. Even though it was the Bronxville neighborhood, we still had things that we were limited on as far as resources. And so it was my main goal going into teaching to be able to teach students that were like me. So with being a teacher now, I understand some of the issues that I saw sitting inside the classroom as a little girl of students not having supplies and having to borrow from their peers, or teachers having to dig into their pockets to spend their own money because the resources at the school was limited. So I still have that issue even today of going from seeing it as a student to now experiencing it as a teacher. And within CPS, because of our limited funds, there are a lot of times where us as teachers, we have to spend our own money, and we're only reimbursed $250 of the money that we spend, which is not even a drop in a bucket compared to what we spend on a yearly basis inside of our classroom.
Okay, now let me stop you there. So you get, is it safe to say, allotment?
Yes.
Up to $250 a year.
A year.
So that's 9 months. So one
9
academic year.
Yes.
Okay, so I want to make that clear. How is that? How do they come up with that amount? Do you know?
I'm not sure how that amount has been formed, but I do know it's been around 200 to 250. I believe it was 200 when I first started, and now it has increased to the $250, but I know it has not been more than that amount since I've been teaching all of these years.
Okay, now how can parents help? Can they donate copy paper, pens and pencils, or ink for the school? What type of things that if they would be able to donate would really help you and allow you, maybe you won't have to pay as much? Because $250, that's not enough. Right. It's not enough for a classroom for 9 academic months. So how can parents help, or how can the community help and make donations? Do the schools have anything set up where you can donate? Or as a parent, as a teacher, what can you say to the parents who may watch this show of how they can actually help bridge that gap?
Well, I know being in CPS, no school will ever turn down donations. So anything that we can get, we really do appreciate. But one thing that we do as teachers is we create school supply lists. And so we put things on there that we know we'll use on a daily basis, whether it's a pack of paper, hand sanitizer, napkins, and then just the basic materials that the students need for their academics, paper, pencil, notebooks. But just donating reams of paper will really help in us making copies to make sure that every student has what they need, even if it's a box of Kleenex. That can go a long way as well.
Okay. I really want to get into the parents and the parent support. How important is that as a teacher and for the parent and the school in general? How does parent support strengthen you as a teacher and strengthen the school?
It's very important that we have the support of parents because we are basically a team. And a lot of the relationships that I have today with parents I've had in the past are still strong because of the hand that I basically reached out to them at the beginning of the year, making sure that we were both on the same team. And if students see that their teachers and their parents are on the same team, then it actually pushes them more academically to do their best because they know that they're not able to put each one against the other, which a lot of students do try to do. But when it's seen that your teacher communicates with your parents on a daily basis or weekly basis, and that when a call is made, parents are up there, and it's not them against the teacher, but them working together to make the students better, then it really creates this environment and this family that helps to move the students even further.
Okay, so parent support plays a big deal in how to strengthen the school, the communities, the child, and the parents.
Yes.
One thing, and we talked earlier, and I said, well, let's talk about the good parents and the bad parents. But I said, let me rephrase that because I don't want to say that, parents are bad parents. There may be some out there. However, I want to talk about your favorite parents and your unfavorable parents.
Okay.
What does your favorite parent look like to you? What do they do? How do they help you? What type of things? What type of relationship do you have with the favorite parent?
My favorite parent, even to this day, I met with my very first class in 2005. I had her oldest son, and every year after that, I had one of her children. So for the first 3 years of my career, I had a bond inside my classroom. And I grew to have such a great relationship with Ms. Martin because she was willing to help, step up to the plate, do things that needed to be done, whether it was make copies or plan parties for the kids, chaperone on trips. So just being there and knowing that I could speak to her about anything pertaining to her children, and even the fact that she was willing to lend a helping hand to those students whose parents may not be as available or as free as she was the classroom mother. And so it felt good to be able to have someone there that had my back and understood the principles that I apply within my classroom and was willing and able to push those principles whether I was around or even if they were at home. So just having that support of a parent to realize that she understood what my goal was, and that was to help her children as well as the other students in the classroom.
Okay, now let's get into your unfavorable parents and what are things that they do or don't do that doesn't help you as a teacher or help their children.
I think I can speak for most teachers when I say the one thing that we don't see often that we need to is the parents actually being there. The support of the parents is something that we as teachers really need. When it's report card pickup, we need to see parents. If it's something that's going on with the students at home that can actually help us inside the classroom. These are things that we need to know. So just having that open communication with us, because we spend time with their children just as much and sometimes even more than they do. And so being able to know exactly what it is that we need in order to protect and also support those children.
Okay. And I want to talking about your favorite parents. Me being a parent myself, always been active. I homeschool one. I actually have a lot of my son's teachers in my cell phone. The principal has my information, so if I need something, I know that I can reach out to him and say, hey, I have this issue. Can you please look into it? And he's really on it. And it's a small school, so they're able to do that. But even in a big school, how do you know how many students do you have?
We have about 300, close to 300 students.
And if you can give me a rough estimate or percentage of how many parents actually are supportive could be favorite parents of other teachers, what would you say that number would be?
Within the school where I am now,
Yes.
I would say 10%.
10%. So 10% of the almost 400 students?
Yeah, close to 300, yes.
Okay, closer to 300, still very low. And so I'm wondering just what these parents are doing with their time and their children. And I'm trying to be very careful of what I say, because of course I don't want to offend anyone, but if you have kids, you definitely have to see to it that they get a great education, and sending them to school is not just the way of education, is being the teacher at home, because learning does start at home first. So I just want to make that clear for all the teachers and parents to understand my place in it. I do believe that parents need to be supportive by going up to the school, having a relationship with the teacher, and reiterating what lessons go on in the school at home. So I definitely want to get into funding, because we hear on the news all the time, funding. And if you don't send your child to school on the first day, that does affect the remaining year. So I kind of want to know how true that is, sending your child to school on that first day, because we hear it so much that it almost sounds like a myth, because we always want to think, oh, Illinois, they have the money, or Chicago, they have the money. Do the school systems, especially CPS, do they really have the money? How important is it to send your child to school on the first day? Because it's reiterated so much, but what about the rest of the school year? Send your kid to school every single day. So I want you to kind of explain to me, if you have the facts on why sending your child to school on that first day is so important.
The importance of sending your child to school on the first day, not only to get to know the routines and expectations of the classroom, but it also helps with finances, because for every child that's inside of the school, that determines the funding of that individual school. And especially within the first 20 days is when they are able to determine how much funding each school should get. And if there's low enrollment, that affects the school as well, as far as the money that is given for the administrators to be able to do different activities, to purchase books and materials, and also to create different events that can occur that can further the academics of the children. So having the children in school is definitely important on the first day and within the first 20 days. Along with the rest of the 160 days that they're at school.
Okay.
But they do use the first 20 days to determine how much money each school will be allocated to use for the school year.
Okay. Great. And yes, so the entire school year is important.
Yes.
But the first 20, that's kind of how the school knows what funding, they'll be able to have.
Right.
So I thank you for explaining that.
You're welcome.
I definitely we're talking about funding. So I wanted to know, as a teacher, what are some supplies or even technology that you would love for your classroom to have, and maybe even the parents be able provide those same things at home?
Well, within my school, I'm actually blessed to be in a school that has technology that other schools I've been in aren't accessible to. For instance, every classroom has a Promethean board, which is like an interactive bulletin board. It allows for the students to write on it and move different manipulatives around if they're solving a math problem. So it's no more chalk and blackboard. Everything
Okay.
has become more interactive in order to engage the students more. We also have different licenses of different websites that we use. One that I use daily is called Alex, Aleks, and they can go to the website alex.com, and each student has their own profile and path based on the grade level that they're in, and I can go in, I can assign tests, quizzes, homework based on whatever the standard is that I'm teaching for their week, and they're able to also access it at home. So it doesn't stop just inside the classroom. It can also go to their home, and they'll be able to improve themselves once the bell rings at 2:45.
Okay. Just a quick reminder for viewers, if you do have a question for Mrs. Simmons or myself, you can always call at 312-738-1060, and we will gladly answer any questions. And if you need information about Turn the Pages, you can definitely go to our website at www.turn-the-pages.org. And if you need to send me an email, if you're interested in being a guest for the show, you can definitely email me at info@turn-the-pages.org. So back to you. We've talked about funding, we've talked about parent participation. Is there any maybe grievance that you want to discuss that's not really being discussed in the school system or just in general?
I think when you spoke about the support of the parents, I think the biggest misconception that parents have is that they believe because we're teachers and we're educated that we come from a different type of life than they did. When actually so many of us, including myself, have actually lived the lives of the students that we teach on a daily basis. I can recall when my parents fell on hard times and we were living in the Roseland neighborhood, we didn't have any lights. And so we had to sit on the porch and do our homework and do it as quickly as we could until the sun went down. Or eating syrup sandwiches because that's all we had to eat. Or my mother taking the cord off the iron and putting it on the stove so that she could iron our clothes. And so I just need parents to realize that even though we may be educated, we may have degrees, a lot of the teachers that you see standing in front of your children have actually lived the lives of those same students. And this is our way of giving back to the communities that we grew up in and trying to make a change so that they can be just like we are, even better. So just making sure that we can bridge that gap of, even though we made one decision to go in one direction, we're no different or better than you. It's just the choice that we made may have been different than yours, that took us down a path and that allowed for us to be in the position that we're in today.
Wow. Thank you. That's amazing. And you and I have history together, so I never knew that. And growing up in this same Bronzeville neighborhood,
Right.
and you never know what a child or a family can go through. And so if there is a family that they're struggling in any type of way, how can they receive help from the school if there's a situation like that? Is it okay to say, hey, we don't have any lights, we don't have this, we don't have that? How can they, just come to you and say, how can we work something out where, my son Henry gets what he needs to in order to just move forward with his education? What can they do?
Well, they can write us a note. If you're afraid to speak with us one-on-one about the issue, you can schedule to meet with your teacher during their preps or right before school or even after. Just speaking to them, and there are several resources that we have within CPS, or we can direct you to our counselor or case manager that can also assist you. But there's so many things out there that are available for you in order for us to help to bridge the gap of communication so that parents and teachers can be on the same page in order to make our students and children's lives better.
Okay, now I know we only have 5 minutes left, and of course, there's never enough time to discuss everything that we try to cram in this time that we're giving. However, I want to go into attitudes and how that may affect you as a teacher as well. And you've come from a struggling background at certain periods of your life, so I want to know, what type of attitude did you have growing up when it came to school? Did whatever struggle you were going through, did it reflect the way you spoke to your teacher or the way you interacted with your peers? Like, how does that really affect a child and everything? And I don't want to offend anyone, but of course there are issues with behavior. And so I want you to kind of explain, if you can, how the behavior issues affects you as a teacher when children and families struggle, and if you can give some advice on how we can all deal with it, then I would greatly appreciate it.
Well, with us going through what we went through, I think our attitude came from the fact that our parents put education first. So regardless of whatever was going on as adults with them, we never really knew about it because we were always taught to stay in a child's place. But we were also shielded and guarded from a lot of things that nowadays students are more exposed to.
Yes.
And so it all came down to the mindset of our parents. My mother was 17 when she had me, but now she has a master's degree and is working on her second. And even though she was 17, she knew to surround me with people who had better than her. So placing me in the church that we went to, the Congregational Church of Park Manor, and me being around people who had master's and doctorate degrees, it was drilled in my head that you can't get less than a doctorate degree. So making the choice to be a better parent for her children is what allowed for us to have the mindset that my siblings and I have. And I think ultimately that's what it comes down to. I understand parents are struggling, times are hard, but it all comes down to a choice that you make. And that choice not only affects you, but it affects your children. And so we just need to learn how to make better choices and be open to others who may be doing better than us, but just taking our ego out of the way and realizing that listening and being willing to hear what other people have to say can be the difference between us going down one path or the other.
And that's so true. And sometimes I think people actually get offended. And the terminology now is in their feelings. And so when people get in their feelings, they don't want to expose what their situation is, and it's really hard to communicate with someone if you need help, but you don't want to tell anybody that you need help, whether that's with your kid, just you in general. So I want to definitely thank you for coming out today. But this has been amazing. You taught me a few things, myself. But number one, we know that parent support is definitely crucial if you want your child to succeed. We want, our presidents to have great backgrounds. And, after the inauguration, of course, there are people who do not agree with who has been voted as president. However, we have to realize as a community, as a people, we are training these children to be who they are. So parent support is is superb if you can get it as a teacher. So we definitely have to wrap up. There's still so much that I do want to talk about that we can't until next week. I definitely hope you tune in. Again, you can always feel free to call 312-738-1060, and I'll give you our website and email information. Again, it is www.turn-the-pages.org, and you can email me at info@turn-the-pages.org if you would like to be on the show or just have questions in general. I would love to hear from you. You've watched Turn the Pages, and this is CAN TV. I'm your host, Jordan Rivers, and I'll see you next week.